Welcome to the Hashimoto's Doctor podcast. You're now part of a growing community of people determined to take their health back through education and self-empowerment. But because of the healthcare system today, we don't have access to the types of healthcare that we want. So we have to do things differently. We've got to do things smarter, and we do that by becoming our own advocates. This podcast will give you the perspective and thoughts of one of the world's leading Hashimoto's doctors. So let's get started. Hey guys, Dr. Shook here. I hope you're doing well today. In today's podcast, I want to talk to you about the importance of a few brain chemicals called neurotransmitters and their impact on the production of your thyroid hormone. Now, this is really important to understand because the entire process of thyroid hormone production begins in the brain, right? And the brain, what it does is it signals the pituitary gland, also a brain structure, to produce thyroid hormone. And when you have this production of hormones by the central structure in the brain, the hypothalamus, that signals the pituitary gland signals the thyroid, and the thyroid produces the thyroid hormone. This all begins in the central structure of the brain called the hypothalamus, and if you have a deficiency of serotonin and dopamine, then you may have some problems producing the thyroid releasing hormone, or TRH, from the hypothalamus. That signals the pituitary, which is also a brain structure, to release TSH, thyroid stimulating hormone, which stimulates the thyroid gland to produce T4 and T3. So serotonin and dopamine, it begins there in the brain. Now, whenever we're trying to, I'm trying to help someone optimize their thyroid hormone physiology, we're not really looking at just one of these problems. We're trying to see what impact, what is the likely driver? What can we do to optimize the entire physiological process? We cast a wide net. We look for as many problems as we can, and then we say, okay, here's the lay of the land. This is what's occurring. Let's take, let's do the least amount of changes. Let's make the least amount of changes in this person's life to try to get the greatest impact, right? And we try to find a balance, right, of how much we're going to do, how much intervention we're going to try, and balance. Let's say the cumbersomeness or the difficulty of the interventions, right? We want to make it as simple as possible, as practical as possible, so that you're likely to follow through with recommendations that I give you. And so, what we try to do is, for example, if we suspect that there's a chemical imbalance, we want to look at as many things as we possibly can to improve that. I would say the greatest and the most overlooked aspect of your body's chemistry that has an influence and an impact on your brain chemistry and your neurotransmitters is your blood sugar. Yeah, blood sugar. Blood sugar plays a very significant role in your neurotransmitters, your neurochemistry. It plays a major role in your hormones and your sex hormone production. So this is something that a lot of people are not aware of, and that's okay. I mean, I wasn't either. Even when you go through training in physiology, you learn how the body really regulates a lot of these systems. You learn how it works, but you don't understand, you don't get taught at all functional, really, not very rarely, unless even when you're studying pathology or pathophysiology, you're learning more classical, how the body breaks down classically. You're not learning some of these functional relationships. So if you don't learn that if someone has hypoglycemia, that they're likely to have problems with their blood sugar, that their blood sugar is likely to create issues with their adrenal gland hormone production. So, for example, if you get hypoglycemic and your blood sugar is low, your body will respond with a stress response and pump out excessive cortisol and epinephrine, which is adrenaline. And so the reason it does that is because cortisol and epinephrine help to stimulate this process called gluconeogenesis. Basically, it means your body will create and release blood sugar that is stored in the liver and your skeletal muscle. Yeah, the big, large muscles of your body, to raise your blood sugar. So it's a mechanism to help try to keep you alive, right? I mean, if your blood sugar drops, what's the body going to do? Well, if it's got sugar stored away anywhere, it's going to try to get that into the bloodstream to get that sugar where it needs to go to keep the body functioning. So it will pump out excessive cortisol and your adrenaline, and that's those mechanisms. Those hormones have these mechanisms that stimulate the breakdown of stored blood sugar that's in the liver and the skeletal muscles that helps keep you functioning and alive. So let's say that you're someone that has, very chronic, or you don't eat frequently. You go long periods of time without eating. You always skip breakfast. You get shaky. You're wired and tired. You're irritable. You get hangry a lot. Those are red flags. And you just need to know that if you're listening to this, that you need to eat frequently if you have these problems. It will help you to stabilize blood sugar, which will help you to improve your hormone function, which will help you to best, and better support brain chemistry, neurotransmitter function. This is critical too if you have thyroid problems, because this entire podcast today is about neurotransmitters, the serotonin and dopamine, how they're essential for the production of your hormones at the in the brain that start and orchestrate the entire physiology, the physiological process of thyroid hormone production. So if you have blood sugar dysregulation and you have neurotransmitters that are imbalanced and hormones that are imbalanced, you may have some problems with normal thyroid hormone production. Because if you can't produce TRH adequately, it's suboptimal. Then you may have suboptimal production of TSH. Now, so there's a lot of different patterns that you might notice on blood work with that. But this is not the most common pattern that I see by far. I mean, this is definitely a less common pattern. But I'll tell you this: when you start looking at all these issues and all these complexities, there are some things that you can do, immediately to help yourself. And that's just like I mentioned, eating frequently, right? Just eating frequently, at least eating every 3 hours, is something that is critical to your health. I mean, a lot of people don't realize how important that is to really balancing hormones, improving neurotransmitter function, improving, every single physiological process in the body. Look, guys, stable blood sugar is so critical for, it's critical for numerous physiological processes. It's very, very foundational to your health. So you can't skip that. That's really important. A lot of times, I work with people that have autoimmune problems and they have thyroid dysregulation, all kinds of issues. And they're like, what do I need to take to fix this? And I'm like, wait a minute. Before we start getting into all these, supplements and everything else that's kind of, more, it's not as foundational to your health. Let's look at your basic chemistry and make sure you've got what it takes to carry out basic physiology. So let's look at your inflammatory load and see if you're extremely inflamed. And if you are, let's get to the root of that. And then at the same time, let's look at can you carry oxygen through your blood to the cells of your body so that they can produce energy like they normally should? Because if you can't, you're going to have dysfunction at the level of every cell. Third, let's look at blood sugar, because you have to have sugar at every cell throughout the body if you're going to have normal physiology. If your cells are going to work normally, you can't be inflamed. You can't have you can't be anemic. You've got to be able to carry oxygen efficiently, and you can't have issues with with your blood sugar. So these are all gonna be problems for you. I'm just telling you, this is the stuff that okay, begin at the beginning, right? You have to begin with this in mind. You have to start at the beginning, and then what you do is you work your way to the more complex things. But you cannot skip the basics, guys. I see this all the time. I can't tell you how often I see this. I see this so frequently that it is, it's really a shame, because there's so many people could and would benefit from, someone just looking and acknowledging basic physiology first. And that's a lot of times, quite frankly, these are the things that I see make huge differences in people's health. Inflammation, are they inflamed? Can they carry oxygen? And are there deficiencies with B vitamins, with iron? Those are things that can affect the blood cells too, quite easily. And then do they have stable blood sugar? If so, it can disrupt everything. And this is something that I really want to share with you guys today. I won't go too much more into detail except to really want to make it clear that your neurotransmitters are responsible for the production of a lot of these, for your brain's ability to produce a lot of these hormones, which is critical for thyroid hormone production. So you can't skip these things. But I hope this helps. Hope you guys have a great day. If you have any questions, comments, please do reach out to us. And talk to you soon. Thanks. Thanks so much for listening. We hope you enjoyed hanging out behind the scenes with Dr. Shook. You can also talk with and learn from Dr. Shook through Facebook Live on our Facebook page at the Office of Dr. Brad Shook. Don't forget, you can also get access to our videos, guidebooks, and thyroid programs at www.drbradshook.com. Oh yeah, and don't forget one more thing. We can change the world one person, one family, and one community at a time. Until next time, remember, today is your day, and no one will tell you who you are and what you can be.